What's up, everybody? This is Chris, aka Barna 11970. Hope you guys are doing well. Um, I actually thought I wasn't going to be making any videos anymore. I made a statement the other day, and I pretty much meant it. But I had to speak about this because I think this is incredibly important because this is going to change the world in ways that people don't understand. And I'm talking about the unaliving of that CEO of that, I think, UnitedHealthcare. Um, this is going to unite people in a way that people do not understand. It's going to create change in the world. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to teach a perspective that no one else will probably be talking about. So bear with me with this, and I hope you'll listen to the whole thing. Okay. Whether you choose to believe it or not, I'll leave it up to you, because I'm going to go deep with this. It's going to be digging into the rabbit hole. So I understand that there's going to be many people that will not be able to hear this. This is for the few that can. Because it only takes a few people to create change. And sometimes, as you can see with this one incident, one situation can make the world change. So it doesn't matter if 99% of the people don't care, don't believe, don't react. Okay? So this is not for those people. When you choose to come into this life, you have purposes. You have goals. I'm coming into this life to have certain things happen. Okay? Now, with free will, you can go off those beaten paths. You can decide not to do something because you lose the memory of why you came here. Okay? So, this is my opinion about the situation of that what some would consider friendly fire, and a person lost their life, and people are very seemingly happy about it. This is going to create change in a way that people don't understand. Now, to me, my belief is that CEO, who was indirectly or directly, I'll leave it up to you, responsible for how many deaths of people because the insurance companies were always having to make profit and denying people coverage, many of which rightfully deserve that coverage. Because take it from a person that has almost died at least 10 times in my life and chose to ride the storm out, so to speak, on my couch because I couldn't afford insurance or hospital bills, and uses 4-year-old expired inhalers most of my life, expired inhalers that were given to me from other people because I couldn't afford the medicines. I understand the frustrations that people have. But what if what I'm saying about choosing your life to come here is true? And this person chose to become a CEO, director of a company that either directly or indirectly caused potentially thousands upon thousands of people to lose their lives because of his decisions, ultimately caused somebody to go out there and unalive him, to where the shareholders of that meeting literally walked over his dead corpse and kicked the shell casings over to the side so they can get into the meeting and make sure the meeting happened on time. And the people celebrating it, what if that person chose to be that quote-unquote evil person and have that death and not even be anything but mocked and glorified for your death? What if that person chose that life knowing that it would make change in the world? Because what's going to happen with this? Okay, if you know anything about what Aetna Health and Blue Cross Blue Shield was going to do, they were going to create a limit to the amount of time you were allowed to use anesthesia in a medical procedure. Now, if you need anesthesia, it's usually a serious situation, if not life-threatening situation, where you are required, like open heart surgery, you can't do it without anesthesia. Now, just imagine if they placed a time limit, and after that time limit expired, The doctors couldn't stop operating, but they just wouldn't be paid for it. Well, that might incentivize a doctor to speed up the process, not be as careful. Just imagine how many lives could be lost and how many dire situations could happen. Well, that changed. Literally within like 24 hours of that leaking out, they decided to change it. Now, that doesn't mean they won't try again, because remember, ladies and gentlemen, and this is, I think, what the change is about to happen. And it only takes one individual, and that's what I've tried to tell people on my channel for the longest time. You don't need the masses to change the world. In a darkened room, you only need to light one match to take away the darkness. And people are finally starting to see what I was trying to preach over 10 years ago. Just look at my channel and look at videos I was doing over a decade ago, talking about how it's all about divide and conquer, and if people understand or understand their power, change will be made. Well, what's going to happen now with this situation? I guarantee you the CEOs and other people of these evil corporations that are based on shareholders' greed, because remember, even if they reach their deadline of their profit margin, what do the shareholders have in the next meeting the next year? Okay, what do we need to do to get to a higher level? Once they reach that and get that profit, they say the next meeting the next year, okay, now we have to increase, because, you know, CEOs of companies are always saying, well, we can never be satisfied. It always has to get better and better and better. Well, you can only do that for so long before, like, for example, the medical companies start trying to take away things like anesthesia for operations, or they take away food and replace it with toxins and poisons because it's cheaper, or using unskilled labor, or using artificial intelligence to replace people so they can continue to make money. Well, what's happening? This situation, this trigonometry that occurred sent a message that there are Robin Hoods out there. There are Batmans out there. There are Punishers out there. This person that did this was probably a hired assassin with a silencer. Now, one event is not going, it's going to make the change, because what'll happen is this is going to unite Democrats and Republicans, socialists and communists, gays and straights, transgenders and non-transgenders. Because how many people in each of those communities, black and white, Hispanic, doesn't matter, atheist, religious people, how many people in every single one of those communities had a family member either die or potentially die, or is suffering financially due to a situation of an insurance company denying their claim that should have been not denied? This is going to unite people. Now, unfortunately, it is my belief, and this is just my opinion, that the first time something like this happens is going to be a coincidence. But notice how CEOs are taking their images off of websites. They're afraid. And probably rightfully so. But you can only take advantage of people for so long before people can't take it anymore. And that's why I talked about, and again, you can watch some of my older videos about resistance. You could be the strongest person in the world. You could be a super athlete. And you decide, I'm going to stand in the middle of a roaring rapid river. And I'm going to fight the current. And I'm going to stand there and I'm not going to move. Well, you could be the strongest swimmer in the world. You could be the strongest person in the world. You could be the most stubborn person in the world. And as soon as you get into the middle of that current and you stand there resisting that current, it's going to bombard you nonstop. Not because it hates you, it's because that's what it does. And you will probably, being the strongest, most athletic, most strong-willed person in the history of mankind, would probably last a maximum of 5 hours before you have been bombarded nonstop to the point where you are so weak that the current rips you apart and floats you down the river. Which means resistance is pain. The river is flowing in its direction, and if you would have just went with the flow, you would have gotten to where you will ultimately end up anyway. So what's happening? These billionaire corporations that care more about profit than humanity and lost their empathy because of the fact of the dollar sign being the most important thing, was allowed to get away with for generations, slowly turning the dial up on the frog in the pot of water. but you can only do it for so long. You can only remove and replace so many food items with toxic chemicals before it becomes literal poison. You can only take away people's rights for so long before even the most stubborn, asleep, well-paid shill will say, I can't do this anymore. So this is going to unite people. Now, this is my prediction, and I hope I'm wrong, but this is just my opinion. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, YouTube has shadow banned me, and they've blocked my ability to even earn a living on this. I don't have ad revenue. So if anybody wants to support me on Patreon, they can go to patreon.com/barnum11970, because I earn no money doing this. So this isn't about the money. But in my opinion, I think there's going to be another attempt, at least, on some powerful person. And once that happens, people are now going to say, okay, the first time, maybe just a coincidence, maybe just an isolated incident. When it happens again, if it happens again, now people are going to have a different mindset, and they're going to start saying, wait a minute, wait, we have power. Look at how people are running scared. Look how things are changing. Third time's the charm. Things come in threes. If there's a third one that happens, it's game over. It's the ants realizing that even though the grasshoppers were bigger and stronger and scarier and made them work for them for the longest time, once the ants realized that when they unite, they outnumber them 10,000 to 1, it's game over. But you have to look at it from a different point of view. It is my belief that everybody comes here to end up having a goal in their life, and they lose that once they're born. Excuse me. And I really think that this person who was unalived, in my opinion, chose to come to this life to be the bad guy, to do all these horrible things, and ultimately get what some people believe is rightfully deserved assassination for what they've caused, or whether it's directly or indirectly, because it would change the world in a positive way. And if you look at it that way, then that person had the most empathy. Now, when we come into this life, we don't remember why we came here, and we have free will to choose anything that we want. And there are no direct paths in the universe. You know, that's like saying you're going to travel from New York to California and you only have one road to take. Well, what if you need to stop and get gas? Or what if you see a tourist attraction that leads you off the road? Or what if there's a traffic jam? Or what if the road or the bridge is out and you have to go another direction? Everything changes. So anybody that ever makes a prediction of something specific doesn't know how the universe works. Everything is based on free will and choice. But we ultimately come here saying, I want to do something. So the villain chooses to be the villain to inspire the good guy. You cannot have a hero without a villain. So I'm not justifying saying that people that do evil things are, in this plane of existence, good, because obviously they're not. Murdering is bad. Doing things that corrupt politicians do, and corrupt news media and corrupt businesses do, is bad. But if their goal was to actually come here to choose to be the bad guy or bad girl, so they create the ultimate positive change for the world, then that's empathy in its purest form. And that's the soul deciding to come here. That's the soul. I'm not talking about the actual physical body that does mean or evil or cool things. I would never justify that. So, like I said, 99% of the people that even will watch this won't understand, or they'll roll their eyes, or they'll say it's crazy. That's perfectly fine. I don't care about that. And I would understand that if I was somebody listening to this for the first time, I would be the same way. But like I said earlier, you only need one little small match, and it will light up a completely darkened room. Change happens when people unite, and this is what the power was that governments, media, politicians, education system, even Hollywood, and for a lesser extent, they had the power of scaring people and giving people information, and people were afraid to challenge it. That's why the cancel culture was their last fight. But once you are revealed of the magic, it no longer works on you anymore. For example, if you're a 4-year-old, 5-year-old kid, and you're having a birthday party, and your parents hire a magician, and you're sitting there, and the magician pulls a rabbit out of the hat. They showed the hat, looked empty, and then all of a sudden they pull a rabbit out of the hat. You're blown away by that. You're amazed, like, oh my God, where did that rabbit come from? Well, when you become older, and spoiler alert, so if you don't want to hear it, turn off it, mute it for a second, but you'll find out later on that there was actually a compartment that hid the rabbit inside the hat, and the rabbit was in there all along. Well, once you know that, that trick can never work on you again. So for thousands of years, governments and even the church, believe it or not, the Vatican, really look into it, they were able to manipulate people and scare people. And it worked because they didn't have the ability to challenge it. And they could just murder people or make people disappear or send them to a deserted island, or imprison them in a hole in the bottom of a castle, never to be seen again. But as technology grew, information grew, which meant there's going to be plenty of misinformation to try and misdirect people. But you cannot stop truth. Just like you cannot stop that one match from lighting that room. And eventually people wake up from the magic spell. And that's why nobody listens to the media, or hardly anybody listens to the media anymore. And we don't need everybody. We just need enough to tip the scales. We just need that one lighted match. Because if you think about it, I'm sure many people will agree that because of that quote-unquote, let's use the trigonometry that happened with that CEO's unaliving, that's going to unite Democrats and Republicans and people because they all have a similar thing in common. They both see that the true enemy is actually the governments, the billionaires, not all, and the corruption, the CEOs that only care about pleasing the stockholders and how much money they can get. Because when you own a stock, all you see is numbers. You don't see what those numbers do to the people that the business affects. And you only care about making a profit. You can't do that forever, because you can only steal so much from even the most sleepy of person, the most complacent of person, before they say enough is enough. That time's coming. There's going to be change. 2025 is going to see change that no one has ever experienced in their lifetime or in humanity's lifetime. I can't make a specific prediction because, like I said, anybody that makes a specific prediction about something doesn't know how the universe works. Because you can go from New York to California in infinite ways. Anybody that says you take a road and that's the only way you can go, that can only work if you decide to take that road. But if the universe doesn't want you down that path, there'll all of a sudden be a traffic jam or a car accident, or there'll be a bridge out and you have to go another way. It's resistance. So if you want better change in the world, don't be stubborn. Don't be naive. Don't, fight the current. It doesn't make you stronger. It makes you dead. So life is saying change is coming. And if you resist it, you're going to be bombarded. Not because the universe is evil. It's because that's what it does. It flows. And if you fight the current, you will be destroyed. And it's not the current's fault. If you jump into that stream and that river turns into a rapid, it's not doing it because it hates you. It's not doing it because it's evil. It's doing it because that's its nature and you chose to fight it. You're never going to win. Change is coming, and this is just the beginning. And you could see that one individual could end up ultimately changing the world. And what that's showing the people is you don't need everybody to make change. Let's hope it doesn't end up being what just happened with that CEO, because nobody should have to have their life taken from them, regardless. Wrong is wrong. But unfortunately, some things are necessary for change. Let's see where it goes. Thanks for watching. Check out my Patreon if you want to support me, if you want me to make more videos. And have a great day. Change is coming. Be excited about it. Because ironically, this is coming up to Christmas. There's plenty of people that are going to have boxes under their trees and they'll have no idea what's in them. But I guarantee you, nobody's sitting there scared to death to open them because they don't know what's in there. Surprises don't always have to be bad. Look forward to the future and stop fighting the current, and you will go with the flow. And as a famous martial artist once said, be like water. Have a great day. I'd love to hear your comments.